Do you
Yes, we see it.
you
Thank.
see it? Okay, perfect. So hi, I'm Edward Fosch Villaronga, and I work at the ELO Center for Law and Digital Technologies at Leiden University. And this presentation might be a little bit different from what we've seen so far, but I think that the reason behind it it's more or less the same. So we are trying to understand what's the impact that gender inferences have on particular user groups. And we did this with Adam Paulsen, a computer scientist in Australia, Roger Sora in NTNU in Norway, and Bart Kosters also in my center at Leiden University. So I'm going to introduce a little bit the topic and talk about inferential analytics, and we're going to illustrate the case that we have in a Twitter example, and then I'll present some points for discussion, and we will wrap up with a conclusion. Um, by knowing users' attributes, companies can target or exclude certain groups more easily and tailor their services to user and increase their attention level. So in a way, profiling makes marketing much more precise and effective. And we see that the more and more this is being increasingly used in many platforms, but also including social media. However, a growing concern is the increasing use of transparent inferential analytics. And I highlight transparent because one of the things that I noticed over my work at the intersection of law and new technologies is that the use of words mean completely different things in different communities. So transparent means easy to perceive or detect, but it seems that Oxford Dictionary also highlights that for computing, it means of a process or interface functioning without the user being aware of its presence. This causes a lot of problems in terms of the legal domain, because it seems to be juxtaposed with the idea of being easy to perceive or detect, but just the other way around. And that's why we use usually the word opaque to say or refer to these processes functioning without the user being aware of their presence. But the thing is that these inferential analytics, what they do is that they reveal sensitive user traits. So even if this happens in the background, they do reveal sensitive user traits. Let me give you an example. Do you have Twitter account? If any of the attendants to the workshop wants to follow with me, I would suggest you to pick your phone and to follow me. And if not, I will give you the example that I prepared. So if you open your Twitter, then click on your picture, and then select settings and privacy, and then go to account. And if then you go to your account, then you can go to your Twitter data. And after including your password, then what you will see is again the part of account. So then click again in account. And then once you confirm again your password, so it is quite a difficult process, then at the end of the screen, you can see your gender. And surprisingly to me, I don't know how are you, but you can share with us in the chat if you want. My gender was female. And then what we realized is that Twitter is actually inferring my gender, and they believe that it's female. Um, this confronts the general population with the idea that Twitter is inferring a very sensitive trait of information from them that can be correct or incorrect. And although not explicit, these inferences can be very influential. Some of these inferences might reinforce the idea that that we have a gender stereotypes. So the idea that there is the practice of ascribing to an individual, woman or man, specific attributes, characteristics, or roles by reason only of their membership in their social group of women or men. And in the law, we have two international human rights treaties that include express obligations related to harmful and wrongful stereotyping. One referring to all forms of discrimination, and it is more related with women, but then also in the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities also. Although these treaties normally refer to states, there is an increasing attention on how companies need to abide these treaties, and they need to also respect human rights, which is something that we are very much concerned with as a society. The problem with this is that these biases continue to persist in an online and offline setting, and sometimes it's not that these these problems originate from the technologies that we use or the systems that we use, but that actually they are exacerbated by the use of this technology. So in this paper, what we wondered is how accurate are Twitter inferences of its users' gender identities, and what implications does this social media practice have? Because the different, some of the authors in the group identify as male and also with a sexual orientation and gay. We hypothesized that the proportion of gay men being ascribed as female was bigger than straight men being identified as female. And that's what we wanted to find out. So what we did is to conduct an online survey for a proof of concept created on Qualtrics. And we asked for 5 questions relating to the following items: sexual orientation, gender identity, what pronouns people use, whether they gave the information about their gender to Twitter, and also whether the gendered inference was accurate or not. And then we distributed these on Twitter. Some of the limitations of the study that we conducted might relate to the number of respondents that we had. We had 109 respondents, although we do believe that the findings that we had were already revealing of something. We also believe that maybe the LGBT community might be overrepresented compared to the number of straight people in society and in general, maybe among Twitter users, but Twitter does not provide data on these. And in our Twitter networks, or also maybe because people from this community are maybe more inclined to complete the survey. So that is the data that we had out of all the respondents that we had. This is more or less what we found out, and I'm going to present the results now in a more friendly manner. So what we understood from this is that the Twitter is inferring the gender of users even if they have not provided expressly with this piece of information, that they do have a binary understanding of gender, which is male and female, and this relates to the general practice of gender classifier systems that have the binary understanding of gender. But also we realized that it misgenders users. And out of our sample, we realized that 20% of the users were misgendered. And although it was not correlated, the sexual orientation and the misgendering, when we look closer at the data, what we realize is 8% of the straight males that we had in our sample were misgendered, compared to 16% of the straight females, 20% of the bisexual females, 25% in gay males and bisexual male, and 100% for those people that were non-binary. So the numbers were not that many because the sample was little, but this already reveals many things. And basically what we see is that, at least in our sample, the LGBT community and straight females were more often misgendered than straight males, but not only gay men compared to straight men as we first hypothesized. So why is this important, and why we should pay closer attention to this topic? Misgendering users via automated gender recognition systems also has a broader adverse implications that can relate to the reinforcement of gender binarism, undermine autonomy because users cannot choose whether they want to be represented in that or not. Also, they offer a tool for surveillance, and also they threaten safety. And when we mean by safety, we mean about how people feel secure, not only in the physical sphere, but also in the psychological one. The assumption that gender is physiologically rooted harms transgendered populations by essentializing the body as the source of gender, and also harms non-binary people who cannot be accurately classified. In a way, misgendering reinforces also the idea that society does not consider a person's gender real, causing feelings of rejection, also impacting self-esteem and confidence, the felt authenticity of the person, but also it increases the perception of users of being socially stigmatized, which is very worrying for particular marginalized communities. So in conclusion, and I welcome you to read further our paper, gender bias may propagate in social media, and it may be more sensitive than we thought. And what we argue in the paper is that gender at the moment it's not considered a specific category of personal data. And what I mean by that is because there are certain pieces of information that we consider in the law as a more protective, rather like, for instance, healthcare data, or data that reveals religion or other aspects. So the gender, it's not part of that, but still this could lead to very much adverse consequences. So we believe that it's crucial, therefore, to understand how these affect society and particular user groups, and that algorithms, if they are meant to be classifying gender, they should account for diversity and inclusion, at risk otherwise to exclude certain communities from the loop. As a sort of takeaway message, what we did in our papers, or our message, is that by identifying how inferential analytics may reinforce gender stereotyping and affect marginalized communities, we hope to continuously contribute to promoting the online account for privacy, diversity, and inclusion, and also advocate for the freedom of identity that everyone should have online and offline. So Thank you so much for listening. Questions and suggestions are very welcomed, especially because what we are planning to do is to take this further and to continue working on this area and conduct a larger survey with also a much more refined set of questions so that we can really understand how Twitter is inferring this information and whether these communities are affected or not compared to others.